podcast. Today is April 12th, 2025, and we're here with a special guest today. We are so thrilled to have Craig Unger on, author of several books that we're fangirling at the moment, but especially House of Trump, House of Putin, and American Compromat, which I just finished rereading American Compromat yesterday. And I wish it was required reading for the United States population right now. We'd be in a better place. So I just want to offer a huge thank you to you for being here with us today. And thank you so much for your work. My goodness, it's an incredible body of work, and we're all better off for having read it.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Okay, Craig. So let's start out by you have been a journalist following the Republican Party basically for how many years?
Well, I've been a journalist for over 50 years, but the last 20 or so, I've done 6 books on the Republican Party's assault on democracy. So a lot of what we're seeing now, I see as part of a continuum that started long, long ago.
Yeah. Well, we were talking, no one reads books anymore, and we're all getting information from millions of different people. So it's hard to pick out reality at this point. Okay, so.
And I noticed that you really have a gift for, this is such a broad-based issue. You know, you have multiple areas of, like you say, that areas that have been evolving through decades, and you managed to bring it all together in a concise way that people can understand.
Well, thank you. I hope so. I mean, I try to write about the unseen ways power really works. And, you know, what you see on TV or whatever, it's theater. It's a performance.
Right.
If someone's giving a press conference, that doesn't tell you what's going on behind the scenes. And I go back really as far as 1968 when I see the Republican Party almost has reconsolidated itself as the Confederate States of America 2.0 in a way, because during the Johnson administration, you had the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act, and all the sort of right-wing racists in the Democratic Party flipped and became Republican. And from then on, if you look at the electoral map, red and blue, the red states sure look a lot like the Confederate States of America. And that's what we've been fighting with really almost since then. And Donald Trump brings it all out in the open. It used to be much more discreet, but he's much more overt, much more vulgar. And he says things like, Russia, if you can hear me, give me those emails. It's almost as if he's showing how traitorous they can be.
Yes, and that is the disconnect that I see with people, because obviously we are in a very red state here. We've been under GOP control for 20 years, Lisa?
Yeah.
And they keep voting. We keep voting for it. And I'm like, guys, do you like this? Is this fun for you? Oh, apparently you like it. Okay. But they don't believe that no matter how much information you give them, they're like, you're a conspiracy theorist. When I say he is well, actually, Craig, why don't you talk about the difference between a Russian asset and a Russian agent for us?
Right. I mean, I've done 2 books on Trump, Russia, and I think they show pretty conclusively that Donald Trump is a Russian asset. It is important, as you say, to distinguish between an agent and an asset in the intelligence world. An intelligence agent is an employee. He or she knows they're employed by an intelligence agent. They have specific tasks that they are asked to do. An asset is a much looser kind of relationship, and it means the person may or may not even know he or she is an asset, but they have a friendly relationship that goes 2 ways. And it started out with Trump way back in 1980. It's hard to believe that's 45 years ago.
That's crazy.
And at the time, he had his first great success. It was one of his very few genuine successes as a businessman when he was developing what is now the Hyatt Grand Central, a huge hotel right next to Grand Central Station. And like any hotel, it needed a lot of TV sets. And Trump, normally you'd think a Hyatt or a Marriott, a big hotel chain like that with franchises, would go to a big vendor like Sony or Samsung or LG or one of those. Trump actually went to a place called Joy Ludd Electronics that was a front for the KGB. Whether he knew that or not, I don't know exactly, but he got a good deal from them and they became friendly. And it turned out this place was really where all the KGB agents who were in America, all the Soviet diplomats. This was the time of the Soviet Union, the height of the Cold War, but they bought it from the Joy Ludd Electronics right across the street from the Flatiron Building here in New York.
Yes, yes. And so then you want to talk a little bit more about how that developed into what it is now.
Right. Well, this was the man who sold him the TV sets was a man named Semyon Kislin, who's still around now and has had a lot of ties with. I mean, he became enormously wealthy himself. He, in fact, is sort of a mini oligarch. He's not quite as big as Khodorkovsky or Berezovsky or Deripaska, but he has a few $100 million. He's pretty well off for a guy who came here with $3 in his pocket. And he was known, according to my sources, he was allegedly a spotter agent. That meant he had to look for people who could be either assets or agents for the KGB. And he reached out to Donald Trump in 1980, and that sort of opened the door. What happened next was there were other Soviet agents in New York. And by the mid 80s, Trump was meeting with them, most famously with a man named Yuri Dubinin, who was first Soviet ambassador to the United Nations and later to the United States. And he and his daughter met with Trump. I believe it was around 1984. Trump Tower had just been built at that time, and it was gaining a lot of fame as this glitzy, gaudy monument to conspicuous consumption. It was the crown jewel in Trump's empire. He lived in there. It was his on the 68th floor of a 58-story building. That was typical Trump in that he misnumbered the elevator stories in the elevator to make it look like it was a much bigger tower than it was. It was only
He can't tell
58
the truth.
stories, and
Can't
he
do
put
it.
himself on the 68th floor of it. And in a way, it became home to a lot of members of the Russian mafia who actually lived in there. I found a total of 13 people who were said to be tied to the Russian mafia, and they lived or owned properties in Trump Tower. I mean, I should add at this point that the Russian mafia is very different from the American mafia. And in the United States, we have known, anyone who's seen The Godfather or doesn't, or Law and Order for that matter, knows that the FBI is always at war with the Italian mafia in the United States.
Right.
In Russia and the Soviet Union, it was quite different. And the mob there, the mafia, Russian mafia, was really an enforcement arm for their intelligence services. So the
Right.
Russian mafia that settled here in Brooklyn, in the Brighton Beach area of Brooklyn, when they sort of flooded in the 80s, they were really doing intelligence work for the Soviet Union and later Russia.
Wow, that's incredible.
And I mean, just to add the obvious, but no one seems to notice this, if they took up, if their home base was 721 Fifth Avenue, Trump Tower, which is owned by the President of the United States, does that not present a very serious national security breach? I think it does.
Indeed. Well, I just have to ask, like leading up to the 2016 election, how did it feel to you to see the names like Paul Manafort, involved in his election campaign?
Right. Well, I was agog. I mean, I first read about it in the New York Times, and I was my jaw dropped when they
Right.
reported that it added a certain gravitas in foreign policy to the Trump campaign. Anyone who had covered Paul Manafort knew him for 30 years as a guy who would represent any tyrant in the world who would pay him. And he was known sort of as the torturer's lobbyist. A friend of mine wrote a wonderful story in Spy magazine back in the 90s, more than 30 years ago, that really was very prescient and showed Manafort for what he was. And he ended up getting over $75 million for his lobbying firm from Vladimir Putin. So he was basically in Putin's pocket. And when he
Right.
started on Trump's presidential campaign, that meant Trump was very much in Putin's pocket from that moment on.
Right. And you know what this reminds me of? I feel like it's like the before Bitcoin happened. Like it's crypto, except they did it kind of in different ways. And now they have crypto, so they can just launder all the money without it's easy now. We can just do it online. We can launder the money
similarly,
online.
real estate was a haven
Easy way.
for money
Yeah.
laundering. And
Yeah.
the regulations for buying and selling apartments and real estate are very, very lax. So if you made a few $100 million in sex trafficking, you could just go to Trump Tower, and a guy named David Bogadin did exactly that in 1984. He put down $6 million in cash in 1984. That's the
Wow.
equivalent of close to 30 million today. And he said, I'll take 5 condos. And he did. And that's how they did it back in those days. And they could flip apartments and buy and sell them all the time. Each time they sold them, they in effect laundered the money. If you ask them where they got their money from, they could just say real estate. So Trump became was providing a terrific service for the Russian mafia.
Yeah.
And, in reading American Compromise, the pieces about Opus Dei and how, Trump seems like such a transactional figure that, that multiple areas can use him to get what they want. And they don't all want the same thing, but he's essentially for sale for their means to an end. And it feels like that's where the Opus Dei bit comes in. And I had no idea how much overlap there was in different administrations in that organization. That was eye-opening.
Right. The whole judiciary under Trump became populated with these people. And as you say, it did start long before he really became a major political figure. If you followed Leonard Leo and a lot of people who are in Opus Dei or affiliated with ultra right-wing Catholic sects of one or another.
Yeah.
And they essentially took over the Justice Department, and Leonard Leo was responsible for getting Republican nominees into the Supreme Court. And that's exactly why Roe v. Wade was overturned, because of this. And it's had enormous impact on the judiciary.
Yeah.
Indeed. And of course, Leonard Leo has been in the news in the last couple of years because of his
money paying
with Clarence Thomas.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, and he dates back that far. I think Thomas was approved in, was it 91 or 92? I think it was the fall of 91, actually. So they've been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah, they're playing the long game. And Leonard's the one that
sure
has
are.
all the Hitler artifacts in his house. Is he the one who's obsessed with the
Well,
Hitler
actually,
stuff?
I think that I'm from Dallas originally, and that Harlan Crow, I think, is the
Harlan,
billionaire.
not Leonard.
And he's subsidizing Leonard Leo's efforts in a lot of ways, but he has all of Hitler's, I don't know.
Why do they all be liking Hitler stuff? Weirdos. Okay, let's see. So does your okay, we have some questions for you. So what does your family think about this, or like friends and family in your life?
Well, we were not Republicans. I think, well, actually, at the age of 3, Dwight D. Eisenhower is campaigning in the Dallas area, and he kissed me, and that's the closest I've ever gotten to it. and he wasn't quite as bad as our current crop of Republicans. I come from a family that was fairly well educated. My mother ran the biggest independent bookstore in Dallas.
Oh, that's
My
so cool.
father was a doctor, and I got into investigative reporting right out of college, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
That's so cool.
On that note, it takes a lot of courage to speak truth to power, especially in times like these when backlash is not unheard of, right? And I'm curious what advice you'd give to an investigative journalist that's starting out on how to navigate these times.
Well, I would probably say go in a different direction. I mean, one thing that's happened, obviously, is since print is dead. I mean, there is no viable financial model for any print publication. There just isn't anymore. And I started seeing that coming, and I switched to books about 20 years ago mostly. But I was a magazine guy. There was a time when I was at Vanity Fair for 15 years. And back 30 years ago, they could give you enough money to live in New York for 3 or 4 months for do one story where they fly you all over the world, pick up all your expenses. And those days are over. That will never happen again. And I'm lucky to have lived during that period, but it's finished. And right now I've switched to Substack because I'm trying to put the ideas across. I mean, one of the things that's enormously frustrating is books really can't go viral because they're analog. I mean, you can get some word of mouth, but that's about it. And I'm trying to tell the same story on Substack now about how I'm doing a Trump-Russia timeline, and it goes back to 1980, as we were talking just a minute ago, when when a spotter agent reaches out to Donald Trump and sells him all these TV sets for very low price, and that makes Trump part of their world. And they, in the 1987, they send him off to the Soviet Union for the first time, and that's where the cultivation of Donald Trump takes place as an asset. And you can see him start to change during that period. In the mid-'80s, he was mostly known as sort of a brash playboy. He would call up the New York Post, which is our tabloid here in New York, and he'd talk to Page Six, the gossip column. He'd use a fake name and tell him about whatever hot babe he was sleeping with that week. And it was just that's what Donald Trump was. He was famous for that. And suddenly, in around 1986, 1987, just as he comes back from Moscow, he tries to reinvent himself as a foreign policy expert, as if he's ever read a book, for that matter.
Yeah, right.
But he actually runs for president very briefly in 1988. I mean, this is a ridiculous time for him to run for president. It's the apogee of the Reagan era, where Ronald Reagan is finishing his second term, and Vice President George H.W. Bush Sr., is obviously going to be the Republican nominee. But Trump intervenes briefly and has a brief go at running for president for the Republican nomination. He doesn't get very far. But what happens to me that's extraordinary is while he is running for president then, he takes out a full-page ad in the New York Times. He also puts it in the Washington Post and the Boston Globe. And he says effectively the same message he's giving right now in terms of foreign policy, which is to hell with NATO, to hell with Europe. They're not paying their fair share. We're going to lash out at them. And he does this in a full-page ad. I think I printed in one of my books, in House of Trump, House of Putin, and you can see it. And I mean, it's just sort of extraordinary because, I know Americans don't really think about foreign policy much, and they probably don't give a shit about NATO.
I do.
If you have any sense of history, it's probably the smartest foreign policy decision this country has ever made after World War II. We developed strong democratic institutions in Europe, strong market economies. Going to Europe, I'm sorry, it's fun. They're great cities. They're great countries, rich cultures, great food, great places to vacation. And somehow or other, I know if you heard J.D. Vance saying, "I hate those Europeans. I loathe them," and it's all very weird to me. But that's what the Republican Party is under Trump and Vance now.
It's like a toddler. Like, I have to pick my toddler up from daycare because he's hitting everybody.
Yeah.
Time for a nap, babe. Let's go. You need a snack, don't you? Give him a snack. He'll calm down. We
They're
won't invade
angry.
Greenland today. Okay. Okay, so have you had any lawsuits or anything for defamation? That's another thing that makes me be like, no, he's telling the truth, or Trump would be
all well documented.
really pushing back.
Right,
Yeah.
right. No, my two books on Trump Russia, like all my books, have about 1,000 source notes each, and you can check up on me, and where it's possible on a Kindle, you can even click through to the. I have the URL, and you can click through to see the original source.
Right.
So no one has sued me for this. I was sued back in the 90s over this. And as I say, I've been doing this for quite a while. And my most recent book, which is Den of Spies, is about how this happened. And I was investigating it in 1991. I was investigating the story of the 1980 presidential election. And I believe, and I've documented it in 6 books, you can go through almost every election and see all the various tricks they did to try to trick America. In 1980, what really happened was Jimmy Carter was president. He was running against Ronald Reagan. He was running for re-election. And at the time of the election, Iran had seized 52 American hostages. And the whole election became about, could Carter get the elections back? Was he strong enough? Or was he so weak we'd be humiliated by Iran? And what the Republicans did secretly, and I believe this was an act of treason, is they made a secret deal with Iran. They said, don't return the hostages. If you return the hostages, Carter will be reelected. Keep them until after the election. And in return, we will send you weapons. And they did exactly that. And I have the receipts in this book. I can show that these operatives working for the Republican Party were secretly arming the militant fundamentalists of Iran so that they would not release American hostages. And when I started writing about that in 91, I was sued, and I was put out of business for quite a few years. I won the lawsuit in the end, and it was but you know what? You got to get lawyers. You got to fight the suit for years and years. Your reputation is in tattered, and it was hard for me to get work. And I eventually recovered, but I lost my home in New York. And it was a drag.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, wow.
Just for trying to tell the truth, and we're seeing.
Gosh.
You know what? And again, that's why I want to just say thank you for
Absolutely
staying at it, because we're watching all of these legal, lawyers and attorneys, bend a knee, obey in advance, do all this,
Exactly.
And I know half the time I'm like, man, I should probably keep my mouth shut. Never going to happen for me, but I probably should. But I can't.
When you put that in context with a representative or a senator that doesn't want to speak the truth because they might not win their re-election bid, like, who cares? Stand up for the truth in your country. Like, they can get another job, but if we lose our democracy, we're done.
Right. When Liz Cheney first spoke out, I thought she'd be the first of many, but in truth, she's been completely isolated and she sacrificed a lot. But maybe this will, I'm wondering if the current economic fiasco that Trump has caused may finally dislodge some of Trump's support. And at a certain point, you got to see it all collapsing. And I certainly hope that's the case.
Chess. It's his 4D chess, Craig, okay? He's playing 4D chess.
4D chess.
I don't even think he knows how to spell chess, okay? Let's go. Come on. Okay, so what do you have a call to action? What do you think we can do? Where do you see this going? Or are you just like, I am not paying attention anymore because I already wrote books about it, guys?
And does anything give you hope? We're trying to figure out how to help, educate people and inform people of what we can do to navigate out of this mess. So, yeah, any words of wisdom on your advice there would be appreciated.
Well, I wish I had some wonderful, easy thing, and I don't have a quick, easy response.
Yeah, I figured not. Me
I'm
neither.
still at it on Substack. I'm a reporter, not more than an activist, but I want to penetrate their bubble. How
Right.
do you penetrate the right-wing bubble? And in New York, I don't know that world. I freely admit it.
Yeah.
I wish I could. But I mean, you're the guys in the red state. I mean, who do you talk to? Can you convince them? Can you have conversations in a one-to-one basis?
Yes.
I don't know the answer to that. And I'm trying to do it on Substack and hope there's a certain virality that will eventually penetrate them. It doesn't, it was sort of interesting. I built up something of a following on Twitter pre-Elon Musk, and then
Ruined it.
he ruined it, and I became shadow banned. So
Oh, man.
before he took over, I could do a good tweet and 800,000 or a million people would see it. Now, if I do a good tweet, I'm lucky if 800 people see it. I can't get
Right.
1,000. And this is really deeply, deeply disturbing because it makes the whole idea of freedom of speech, freedom of the press, it renders it ridiculous when one zillionaire, or he's almost a trillionaire, he could be the world's first trillionaire, is able to essentially ban the free speech of anyone to the left of Attila the Hun.
Well,
Right.
and then buy the whole social media site in the name of free speech. Oh, he's so annoying. Oh,
I have a question.
Okay,
Do you think that any of our institutions are unscathed? Because so many are not. We've watched so many crumble. But is there any area that you think is standing up and doing okay?
Can I say no?
That would be my anser because everywhere we look is affected.
I think there are some good people in Congress who are fighting hard. I think Senator Chris Murphy's been very strong recently. I like Sheldon Whitehouse a lot, Jamie Rask, and there are some very good people out there. And I think we need constitutional lawyers like Jamie Rask, and I think that's a good thing. I think AOC has been very strong recently. It's good to see younger people rising up in the Democratic Party. But I don't think it's going to be a quick and easy thing to dislodge this at all. And I do say that we have not yet really felt the economic consequences of the havoc Trump is currently wreaking. And I would like to think some of the damage is going to happen in those red states. The people supporting him will suffer, and maybe that will change their minds.
We're watching. So you were talking about conversations with people, and that's what I really try to do on a personal level because, again, I don't ever be quiet. But, establishing that trust, finding out where they're at, meeting them where they're at. But now that I have, that's what I really wanted to talk to you, so I could have some validity behind what I'm saying, you should listen to our interview with Craig Unger. He has so much knowledge on these topics. It's not something I found on X, and followed it down, and it's a QAnon page. This is real.
Right.
It's real. It's well documented.
When I wrote House of Trump, House of Putin, my publisher said to me that it's like the nicest thing a publisher can tell you when you finish the book. She said, Craig, this will really going to change the national conversation. And you know what? It didn't. It spoke to the people who agree with me. And I try to write in a way that is not full of rhetoric, that it's based factually, and that there's source notes. So if you don't believe it, you can go to the original source and check me out. But I think people don't read is
Yeah.
the horrible truth about it.
Unfortunately, it's true. And I think there is a population of people out there that it does not matter what facts you put in front of them. They've made up their mind. It's not going to change.
Right.
And
Well, that was not the case when I started out,
yeah.
Right.
I don't. One thing that I think has to change is that Silicon Valley has to be regulated. I think social media, the way
Yeah.
it's been handled by Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, is horrifying, and it really distorts the national conversation. If you look at
Mhm.
the polls, most Americans agree with the
On
Democrat
policy.
policies,
Yeah.
but they don't vote that way. And I think a lot of that is because of
Yeah.
the way social media distorts the conversation.
I agree.
Absolutely. I mean, it's geared to to stoke outrage. So,
Clickbait.
yeah,
Right.
that's not
But this
helpful.
is like, but then they would read your book, Craig, and it would be the biggest dopamine hit ever. So I don't understand.
Well,
Like,
I
you
don't,
have,
yeah, but I challenge their beliefs, unfortunately, and
Yeah.
that's what's hard. I mean, people want affirmation; they want their
Mhm.
beliefs affirmed. Called confirmation bias. You
Mhm.
smile when you
Absolutely.
read something that confirms
it feels
your
so
belief.
good. It's my world. They're just living in it, Craig. Oh,
Well, and here in Missouri, we struggle with like statewide, we'll pass amendments like, to maintain access to abortion care or various things that are considered liberal ideas or liberal issues. And then people keep voting in the like local Republican legislators who, of course, then proceed to try to overturn the
our
amendments that we just
initiative
passed.
petition that we
Yeah.
just did, like it's
It's a
crazy and it's
struggle.
nonstop. It's like
Yeah.
like they do something as soon as we the people do something, and I try to talk to the people and be like, hey,
Mhm.
why are you making more work for yourself? You're literally making more work for yourself. I don't get it. I don't get it. But
Yeah, a lot of the problem I think too is the way data has been atomized. And as you were talking, Lisa, I thought I saw a short video a few weeks ago of a young woman in Arizona, I believe, and she said, "I voted for Trump because he's pro-choice." And I ah! And in Arizona, I guess perhaps similarly to what you went through in Missouri, there was a statewide
yep,
amendment that
Mhm.
gave women that could have been framed slightly as being pro-choice. I mean, it had some exemptions, but it wasn't really. But it allowed the Republicans to brand themselves locally in that way, and somehow it or other got the women's vote. I mean,
Mhm.
white women voted for Trump nationally.
do you think that he really won? I'm going to put my hat on. I have my
Full hat time.
foil hat, but I don't. I mean, I've been following Election Truth Alliance, and I think there's more than a foil hat to it. But I don't think he won all 7 swing states.
Right. I honestly don't know, and I really don't like to go out on a limb if I
I
don't know
won't. Okay.
facts to
Mhm.
back it up. I do think one of the keys in the election was Elon Musk taking over Twitter, and I think
Yeah.
that I mean just think of it as think of that as a $44 billion campaign contribution. That's
Yep.
what it was,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
I'm sure that made a difference.
Do you think if Citizens United, do you think that would be a first good step to
Ah,
kind of?
it should go, go, go. It's been horrifying, and it's
Mhm.
getting more and more horrifying over the years that it's used. Partly, I think one of the huge blows to the Democrats was you have the so-called broligarchs, the techies of Elon Musk and so forth, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, here you have, I mean, that tech world initially people thought of as liberal, I assume because it was in California and there was something libertarian about it. But there's
Mhm.
nothing liberal in it at all. And what Zuckerberg, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, these people should be in jail. They are killing
They're
free speech
scary.
and freedom of
Yeah.
the press. They're destroying what it really meant.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Well, and
First Amendment, it talked about freedom of speech and freedom of the press. It didn't even say radio. There was no radio in the founding, or broadcasting, or cable
right.
TV, and now we have social media. and it can distort things so easily. I mean, when you tweak algorithms to get as many clicks as possible, it means they're going to click the extreme things. They'll click on things that confirm their bias. It has nothing to do with truth. In newspapers, I mean, newspapers were deeply flawed, don't get me wrong, in magazines and all that. But we, for the most part, where I wrote, we had serious editors. We had fact checkers. For my books, I hire a professional fact checker who used to work at the New Yorker. He grills me on every goddamn paragraph and
Yeah.
asks me where did my sources come from. And I'm paying for that out of my own pocket because I want to get it right before publication.
Right.
And you can imagine what goes on Twitter X or whatever Musk is
Well,
calling it.
yeah, people, I'll be like, do you have a source for that? And they'll send me like a random person on Twitter. I'm like, that is not a source. Let's go back to media. Okay, this is a source. I guess they did send me a source, the person who tweeted it. But I meant a reputable one, not Johnny on X.
Well, that must feel like a grenade going off in your world when, like, what's happening at the Washington Post and, to see the editorial work affected as it is.
Right. I mean, the Washington Post is a once great paper. And during the Watergate era, I mean, it stood up to Nixon. It then published the Pentagon Papers. And those were... it was speaking truth to power, but it's very, very hard to do that anymore in any way. And I mean, even doing it on Substack, it's me alone, really.
Sure.
And, you at a certain point, you wonder, will the Republicans come after you?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
that's
5 years ago, that I don't think anybody worried about that, but now it's a valid concern.
Right. I
very
never thought
Russia
Trump would
vibes.
be reelected.
Me neither. I was so heartbroken. I'm still grieving all the people that I thought I knew that are totally cool with like special waves and stuff. So I don't know. You're learning who you would tell if Anne Frank was in your closet.
Wow.
Well, Craig, thank you so much for getting on here. I'm going to have to order a couple copies of the book so I can hand them out.
Absolutely. We like to give books to friends, so
yes, we do.
Well, thank you very much.
And we will encourage all...
which sort of gives a big overview of, but the other ones are more specifically about Trump and Russia.
Yeah.
And Den of Spies is the newest one, correct?
Yes, it is. Den of Spies.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
I can't wait to read that.
I've seen it at the library. I've seen it out. So.
And we'll encourage everybody to go over to your Substack and subscribe. And I mean, I guess an advantage is you get to communicate with people on a much more frequent basis, which is nice.
It is. I mean, I can actually readers write me on Substack, and I appreciate it. And some of them send me new information, which is good, and some of them just let me know that my book was worth reading.
Absolutely.
That's the best to hear. We love to hear when one of our two listeners comment. We're like, yeah. No, I'm just kidding. We have a little bit more than that, Craig, but maybe we'll get a little bit more since we got a big name on here today.
There's just a lot of important information people need to understand.
Yeah.
And however we can get that out, so be it.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and sign off here.
Thank you so much, Craig. We truly appreciate you, and thanks for your time.
Well, and thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you.